hiring freeze seems to be over. And the big name that was making the rounds this past week, someone that I'm sure if they showed up for, I don't know, an upcoming NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, I believe starting this Tuesday. If they happen to maybe showed up on this Tuesday, who knows? Is Jade Cargill. Last week, this was off everyone's radar, and then all of a sudden, it appears that Jade Cargill is gone from AEW and is reporting to the Performance Center in NXT and WWE today. And
Select dropped that bomb at like 2:30 a.m.
And is seemingly going straight to the WWE. As far as anyone can tell, it doesn't seem like this was obviously a contentious breakup, a firing, a quitting from Jade Cargill or AEW Tony Khan's side. As far as anyone can tell, this is just sort of an amicable sort of thing. I mean, I've heard a lot of people's thoughts on it. The biggest thought I can think of is like Jade wanting to become more of a star and maybe get a different amount of training. With Darks and everything being gone, there's less spots basically for Jade Cargill to wrestle. Plus, if you're Tony Khan, you just did an undefeated streak and had that end now kind of twice. What do you do now more with Jade Cargill? Letting her flourish in a different company is not necessarily a lose-lose in that aspect. But that all being said, what do you think about Jade Cargill leaving AEW, and what do you think about her reporting to WWE?
It's a brilliant move for Jade Cargill. She is, I think we've talked about this a lot on this show, just reviewing her matches or anything like that. She is a star that should already be made, if that makes sense. And I think WWE is truly the perfect place for her at the end of the day. As much as I truthfully in terms of the women's division for AEW, she will be the biggest dropping of the ball. And I say that as someone who saw her have an undefeated streak, but it was an undefeated streak that was so directionless for so long that it made people pretty much be like, all right, I don't care about Jade anymore. Jade had like a real aura to her for a good first half of her run, I think. And then we just got to this point in the undefeated streak where it's like, she's on TV once a month, and her match is like against Anna Jay for like 4 minutes. That happened on pay-per-view, I think, twice. It's like, at what point are you going to make this interesting for everybody? And there are conversations to be had about her and her improvement in the ring and stuff like that. The AEW system is a really difficult place to learn pro wrestling. And I say that because
so glad
they don't wrestle enough. Unless you're doing indies on your own, like a Sky Blue does, for example.
Yeah.
Or Billy Starks.
Or even the Acclaimed.
You're not. Yes, exactly. Like, you're not going to get the in-ring reps at the end of the day, you just need the matches. Like, you can practice in a ring all you want.
Yeah.
Jade practiced with Bryan Danielson of all people.
Yeah.
But it's not going to do enough. And listen, we have our thoughts about the Performance Center. We have our thoughts about WWE training. It's going to benefit Jade a lot to have that.
Yeah.
And I think this is the perfect move all around, because sadly, we got to a point, I think, in AEW where what were you going to do with her next? You dropped the ball months ago. Like, this was, to me, it was like, all right, this is just probably the best for both moves. The AEW women's division can go a different direction now. They can focus elsewhere. She should be their biggest women's star. Like, I think a lot of people said that was her potential. And maybe it was for a little bit there, but we never, I think, got to where it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that feeling was also in part to like waiting for Chris Statlander to come back from injury. But I feel like a lot of people felt that way even before Chris Statlander was getting injured, and that it was like, oh, it should be Chris Statlander that defeats her. Or, I remember a Willow should beat her at one point. Like even before Chris got injured, there was starting to get that turn of,
Yeah.
all right, this is going on a little bit too long. Same thing of like, we're not necessarily seeing improvement from Jade Cargill. And I think the big thing that isn't talked about enough, and I'm so glad he brought it up, is that this idea of, can AEW develop wrestlers' skills anymore? It seems that the idea was, and Tony Khan mentioned this again at one point in time, that the AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation was their performance center. But since the whatever deal they struck, their exclusive deal that they struck with WBD, where it ended Dark and Dark Elevation, that went away. And now all these people that show up, some maybe a little bit bigger stars that show up for Dark and Dark Elevation are no longer able to do that. Now, if you're showing up on Dynamite, there might be 1 or 2 dark matches at the beginning, then the Rampage taping afterwards. If you show up for a Collision, you get Ring of Honor, but Ring of Honor also has its own group of people that are not on AEW television. Right. So you have this sort of performance center, as Tony Khan once said, suddenly gone. And it's a matter of, how can these people get reps? Yes, Jade Cargill can wrestle and train with the best wrestler in the world, Bryan Danielson. But if she's not going out there and wrestling on Dark Elevation, wrestling on Ring of Honor, even wrestling on Rampage, wrestling on those house shows, then she's not getting enough reps. And they wanted to, cap off all of her time, constantly being like, okay, we're going to cap it off at like 20, 30, 40, 50. They want to make it a good number. They could have easily gone up to 100 and then have Chris Statler do that. And then obviously Jade would then have 100 matches. She has, let's look at old Jade Cargill's cage match here to see how many matches she has had. Let's see. Jade Cargill, 31 years old, has only wrestled 64 matches. And that is roughly 1 match a month. Maybe
let me ask you this.
Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5.
How many of them went over 5 minutes?
Another great point. How many of these matches went over 5 minutes? It is just simply not enough time. Her most amount of matches in 1 month was September 2021. She wrestled 6 matches, which is a decent number for a TV wrestler, I guess. But we're talking Dark, All Out, Dark Elevation, Dark, Dynamite, and Rampage. Of that, 3 of them were sub a minute 30. One of them was 6 minutes, one of them was 9 minutes, and the other one was a Casino Battle Royal. Where that doesn't really count. I guess it counts.
I would say that does not.
No. So it is simply someone who doesn't get enough reps. And it feels like the development model for AEW has changed to a point where, unless you're working Ring of Honor, I don't know how, I don't know how much reps you're going to get within the AEW system, because as we've seen with everything else, it's like, we talked about it before in regards to the AEW women's division. We're speaking about Jade Cargill. That one of the reason that the women's division, I feel, is very stunted is because they only get 1 match a show on like Dynamite or Rampage or Collision. And then you can only give 2, 4, 6 people a week a rep to potentially have some sort of match. Not counting if they wrestle the main event of Rampage and then wrestle the main event of Collision the same week. There are just not enough spots for these women to get more reps. And unless they're working Ring of Honor, which a lot of these women,
or indies,
or indies, which a lot of these women just simply aren't. Same thing goes with the men, of course. And you're not developing stars fast enough or consistently enough. You're not giving it women enough reps. So it's just naturally, because of all this, the women's division is going to be naturally stunted. And it's just like, there is seemingly no way to fix that unless you work indie dates or work Ring of Honor, which is already semi-exclusive to specific people. That all being said, Jade Cargill going to NXT, way more reps she's going to get. She's going to wrestle multiple times.
She might not go to NXT.
We'll talk about that, but I mean, sort of the performance center, I should probably say.
Yeah,
We'll talk about where she could go in a second, but going to the performance center, she'll get way more reps. She'll wrestle all the time and get constant training about it, and I think that'd be a huge improvement to her career. Hopefully, maybe we've seen the peak of Jade Cargill, but maybe we haven't, and maybe we'll see more of it in the performance center.
I just think it's a place where, you know, unfortunately, like, raw athletes can't necessarily go because they're just not going to learn everything they need to learn through the simpleness of, you know, wrestling in the ring.
That's a fantastic point. How often has AEW turned raw athletes into stars versus WWE? Into not stars, I'll say wrestlers.
I mean, don't get me wrong, WWE has that in them, like that's what they've always done.
Sure, but the argument it feels like the argument you're making is that like WWE is way better at turning athletes in training them how to wrestle than AEW is.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, AEW's only had a handful.
Let's think. Let's think.
Ogogo?
Anthony Ogogo. I don't know about that one.
Big, tall, giant guy. I can't think of the name of.
Paul White?
No. The Indian guy.
Trench? Trench, actually, Trench was someone, I believe. He was a baseball player. Jade.
No, the guy with Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, Satnam Singh.
Yeah. I'd say he's much. Jade,
obviously. A lot of these people are barely doing anything. I'm looking through the roster page right now to see if anyone else sticks out to me. I don't know if Colton Gunn or Austin Gunn did anything beforehand. Hook, if you want to count.
Hook, I guess, yeah.
Hook,
I'll give Hook.
Yeah, if you want to count that. Guess.
Yeah, I'll give you Hook. I'll give you Hook.
Like I said, the Guns I am unsure about just because I legitimately don't know. Legitimately don't know what that is. I don't see anyone else. I don't know what Lee Johnson did beforehand.
Either way, I think my point is proven. Austin Gunn did wrestle before AEW.
Yeah, that is true. Colton Gunn, I know Colton Gunn did wrestle beforehand.
Did Ring of Honor, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, he did. Colton Gunn, I simply just do not know if he did anything. Parker Bordeaux, he kind of wrestled beforehand, I guess. If you want to, Preston Vance, I think he was just a wrestler.
But my point stands. Like, it's not a place I think athletes are going to pick to go anyways, because they probably just don't have prior knowledge. But it's not a place that, you know, and I think a lot of athletes in the history of WWE or wrestling have gone on to be great wrestlers. And ultimately it comes down to, okay, then what are you going to pick from if you're AEW moving forward? And it's going to always have to be the independents and other companies, which we've seen them take talent from. It was just an interesting point. But in terms of Jade, I think she is going to be fine, and here's why. This is the way I thought about it. This is the way I thought about how Jade was probably very much wasted in AEW. Mm-hmm. It's because I'm already seeing people say, "Oh, you do Jade versus Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania." Hello, like WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I understand, like, WrestleMania, like, for some people, you know, if you don't like WWE, whatever. But WrestleMania is WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I'm seeing people pitch that in all seriousness tells you where they think Jade should be. And I could believe it if WWE wanted to run Jade versus Rhea Ripley 6 months down the road at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That's money for them. It's money in the bank.
Let's talk about that. But yeah, let's talk about that. Where do you think Jade Cargill is going to go? There is obviously this idea of NXT. Even if she was in there for like 6 months, then bring her up to the main roster so she gets even more seasoning. That's a little more hidden. That could be an idea. I think her and Tiffany Stratton could be a great feud. Sure. Monday Night Raw just started. Monday Night Raw just started, so presumably Jade can show up tonight, and we'll obviously talk about it if it happens. I just saw a report saying that Becky Lynch is defending her NXT title tonight, which I think is interesting. So yeah, I mean, it is a question of where do Where does she pop up? Where do you think Jade Cargill? She's obviously going to make, or the belief is obviously that she's making main roster esque money, not as much as a Becky Lynch or a Charlotte thing, but not as little as NXT people.
Yeah.
So she's making a decent, lower main roster person. But where do you think she might end up? Is she going to end up on Raw or SmackDown, or is she going to just hang out on the Performance Center, hang out in NXT for a little bit? What do you think?
I think ultimately they put her on Raw or SmackDown just because she has, like, people have knowledge of her already. But I would have her beat Becky Lynch for the NXT Women's title. Almost writes itself, doesn't it?
And then she she debuts on Raw and backs to NXT. Oh, interesting idea.
Beats Becky Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
That is as made as possible.
Yeah.
Trust me, it is as made as possible. I saw the NXT ratings. That's a big draw you're beating. That's what I would do.
I was about to say, steal a star, make a star on Raw, bring her back to NXT. You're trying to also pump up the NXT ratings. Maybe Jade can pump it up even more.
Yeah, and I think you were absolutely right in kind of, NXT is the right place. But I do understand why they wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's, she's someone that you want appearing especially right out of AEW. Like, I'd get her on TV this week. Yeah. I don't care if it's in the stands. I don't care if it's with a microphone. I would have her on TV this week. She just wrestled this past week for a title in the other company. Mm-hmm. And mind you, I thought it was the best match of her career.
It was really good, actually.
Like, they did the Haas stuff, and I was like, this is great. This is exactly what she should be doing. And I was like, and she's leaving. Awesome. Wonderful. Like, this is how it goes. Raj Giri, pour one out, buddy. You nailed that one. You put a lot of money on that. Good job. Yeah, no, I would put her on TV as soon as possible. I would get her on TV as soon as possible, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT. Doesn't matter. She is going to be a big star in WWE, and she knows that. That's why she's going there.
It appears Becky Lynch's NXT title defense is an open challenge.
Yeah, it's not against Jade. I just saw it was against.
I don't know that.
Fightful Select said who it was.
Oh, okay. It's Fightful Select. Do you care if we say it on air?
It's Tegan Knox. Like,
ugh.
Like, it wasn't exciting. It wasn't exciting, but Jade's WWE is, and now AEW's gotta respond. They got because losing another woman who you pretty much invested half the division in,
who beat most, if not all, of your division
for a year,
at least.
You just watched her walk out. Oh man, this is not helping the women's division conversations in this company at all. It is not. No. It's just another thing that they got to bounce back from now.
And I'm sure they will. It's just, we talked about like free agents.
Chris Statlander's doing her best job at doing it.
Completely agree. We talked about free agents before. It's like how many female women's free agents are available? Mercedes Moné is obviously the most obvious one, but beyond Mercedes, who? Give me some more names.
My first reaction when Jade was going there was Mariah May has to be your future now. Because if she's not, what are we doing here? Because like she's the next big star.
13 seconds ago, Sean Ross Sapp. Tegan Knox was slated internally to challenge Becky Lynch for the NXT title. Instead, she worked main event.
Oh.
All right, we'll keep a finger on the pulse on this one, folks.
All righty. The show will probably end and then Jade will show up.
I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
All righty.
We got an hour, Jade. TikTok, come on.
That's crazy. But all right. But yeah. Just Jade to WWE good. AEW, good luck. Just keep running Statlander out there. It's working.
It's definitely working.